how would you like to improve your health and keep your family safe? You're listening to the Healthy Home Hacks podcast, where we firmly believe enjoying optimal health shouldn't be a luxury. Healthy Home Authorities and husband and wife team Ron and Lisa will help you create a home environment that will level up your health. It's time to hear from the experts. Listen in on honest conversations and gain the best tips and advice. If you're ready to dive in and improve your well-being and increase your energy, you're in the right place. All right, here are your hosts, biobiologists, authors, media darlings, vicarious vegans, and avocado aficionados, Ron and Lisa Barris.
Hi, friends, and welcome to the show. Remember to visit us at ronandlisa.com to sign up for our free 7-day Healthy at Home challenge and learn more ways to connect with us. That's ronandlisa.com.
Have you ever felt a pain so severe in one of your joints? Say it's your wrist, knuckle, knee, or maybe your big toe. A sharp shooting pain that feels like shards of glass have penetrated that joint. So painful that even a light bed sheet that brushes across it causes immense discomfort. If not, consider yourself lucky that you have never experienced gout. My first episode occurred when I was 21. My younger brother also followed suit. Lisa's dad has had gout, her stepfather, her brother, they've all experienced this disease that can be so debilitating, you can't walk, you can barely get out of bed or sleep because the pain is so severe, and it's caused by high levels of uric acid in the body. And it's often called the rich man's disease because foods high in purines, like red meat and shellfish, can exacerbate it. For years, I suffered trying to avoid being dependent on medication. Finally, I succumbed. My case was so bad, I was put on 300 milligrams of a daily dose of allopurinol. Not ideal for the kidneys. Many years later, Lisa and I decided to go full vegan. And about a year after that, Lisa told me, she said, you eat so healthy now, maybe you can start reducing your dose and weaning yourself off that gout medication. I didn't believe I could. And quite frankly, I never wanted to experience that sharp shooting pain again. But I finally gave in. I began reducing my dose in stages, going from 300 milligrams to 200. And then after a few months, I reduced again down to 150, then 100, lastly 50. It was a slow process. But as I allowed my body to adjust, I noticed I wasn't having gout attacks. And I'm beyond thrilled to share with you today that I'm off medication and I have never, ever felt better. So why am I sharing this story with you? Because chances are you might be in the same boat. Maybe not with gout specifically, but with some other ailment that is preventing you from living your absolute best life. An ailment that requires medication that maybe, just maybe, a change in your diet and or lifestyle could eliminate. Someone who understands this concept is our very special guest today, Dr. Ashley Beckman.
Dr. Ashley is a doctor of Chinese medicine and acupuncture and a board-certified acupuncturist and herbalist in Los Angeles. She received her doctorate in healthy aging and longevity, and she specializes in healthy aging, epigenetics, pain management, fertility, detoxification, headaches, stress reduction, and facial rejuvenation. Dr. Ashley has performed over 40,000 acupuncture treatments. That's a lot of needles, guys. She also co-founded Golden Path Alchemy, an organic skincare company based on the principles of traditional Chinese medicine, which is how we met, I believe, Dr. Ashley many years ago, about 10, I think.
Dr. Ashley received her doctorate and graduate degree from Yosan University of Traditional Chinese Medicine and holds a degree in International Business and Marketing from the University of Texas. Ashley practices homeopathy in Los Angeles, California, as well as virtually, and lives in Malibu, California. Dr. Ashley's passion is healing properties of herbs, holistic nutrition, flower essences, essential oils, light color therapy, and whole foods. And she combines all of these elements to instill a holistic lifestyle change tailored to you.
Welcome to the show,
Dr. Ashley.
I'm happy to be here. It's nice to see you guys again. It's been so long.
I know, even if it is virtually, we're Zooming it here. At least we're seeing each other.
True.
It's been too long. So, Dr. Ashley, I know you don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach to medicine like so many in Western medicine do. Rather, you hold your patient's hands to end the cycle of dis-ease, we'll get into that, and begin their road to optimal health by employing all the natural therapies that are safe, that are effective, and that are handpicked, which we are all about here at Healthy Home Hacks, but not something embraced much by Western medicine, as I said. So let's get started. For those listeners who don't know, which was me while I was preparing for today's show, we're going to talk about something you are passionate about, Dr. Ashley, something called epigenetics. Can you explain to our listeners what that is?
Sure. So epigenetics is basically the study of how lifestyle affects your genetic expression. So your genetic expression never changes. So if you get DNA testing for something, that's not going to change. But what does change is how something is expressed. So you kind of have this blueprint that you come in with, but your thoughts, what you eat, the way you exercise, meditation, a lot of these different factors will either impair your genes like negatively or positively. So what I love about this field is that basically it gives you a lot of your control back, and you have a lot more power over your health destiny.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think, you have a lot of people who say, oh, that's just a genetic disease. That's in my family. There's nothing I can do about it. So this study is saying, hey, you have a lot more control than you think. Would you say that's accurate?
Definitely. Because that's the thing is people have these thoughts ingrained in them that they're going to get whatever their parents had. But mostly what it is habits are passed down through parents, the way we eat. The foods we pick, our emotions, the way we react to stress. A lot of these things really are passed down, and it's not actually the genes per se. It's just how we react to our environment and to ourselves and our life.
Yeah. And I know there was a famous study, it's on PubMed, that said 90 to 95% of cancer is actually due to environment and lifestyle. Only 5 to 10% is genetic. And I think that's really whopping and shocking, because when you tell people that, they kind of give me a look like, no, that can't be with all the cancer. But that's true, and that's based on a PubMed study, and that's good news. That's something we want to embrace and say, gosh, guys, we've had the power all along. We have so much control.
Exactly. And that's one thing I think we're both super passionate, or all of us are all very passionate about toxins and getting them out of your body. And that's how I got into epigenetics, really, is because it can show how some of us are more sensitive to chemicals and things like that. And that basically our detox pathways are a bit impaired, and you need to kind of implement some other strategies. So you're not the one who's, super sensitive to perfumes and paint and all of that. So those are all signals to us that that's not something you should really be around, and you make better choices, like what you guys do. And then the same too is that it's actually a signal that your body doesn't do very well with toxins. And some of us
does anybody?
No, but some of us are worse off, I guess I would say. The ones who, like, someone walks by and is wearing perfume and you get a migraine, and other people it doesn't.
So Dr. Ashley, how can my genetics or a person's genetics actually impact how they detox and how sensitive they might be as a person?
Sure. So there are groupings of genes that we look at to see how your detox pathways are impaired. So on the kind of technical side, there's some phase 1 detox, and then there's phase 2 detox, and there's some other ways and places we look too. But basically, sometimes this has to do with how we process and utilize glutathione in our system, master antioxidant that helps us. Another way.
I want to interrupt there, because I've been hearing about glutathione so much lately. I don't know if it has to do with COVID or it's just synchronicity, but I'm hearing about it. Is this something that anybody should be taking, or is that something you really need to go under your doctor's care and say, hey, here's how much you should take?
So with glutathione, it's used for different purposes. So as an antioxidant and an anti-aging type treatment, it's used a lot orally through a liposomal pump. So there's brands that, a lot of us use, and it's also very much absorbed with IVs. So generally people are doing that more on kind of like the anti-aging beauty side, but it also really helps with the lungs and detoxifying different types of chemicals and environmental toxins.
Wow.
So it's used a lot. People, even right now, currently, you could put it in a nebulizer for lung health. That's probably maybe where you're hearing about it a bit more, just to increase lung function. The precursor for glutathione is NAC, and NAC is often used for lung health. So that's another one that people are taking too. And the NAC, basically, if it's a precursor, it means you take the NAC and then it should convert in your body to glutathione.
Oh, gotcha.
But sometimes people are impaired in that system and in the genetics. And so then that's why some people also shortcut that and just go straight to the glutathione.
Gotcha. So, but could I go get an IV, or anybody listening say, hey, I want to get an IV, and it's good for, I think you said anti-aging and that kind of thing?
So you can. What I would say too is for somebody like myself, I am very sensitive to certain chemicals and things like that. So when I got an IV of glutathione, I had a massive headache and I had a migraine like within about 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
So it started to detox me way too quickly.
Gotcha. Okay.
So a lot of these things, like they might not mention that at the IV bar that you're going to. You know what I mean?
You leave with the hangover, that's for sure. That's
exactly.
Nice.
So, one thing that I'm always doing with clients, and that's really important to me and it's part of my protocol, is always making sure that your detox pathways are open before you start detoxing people. So that's a really big piece of what I do with people, because for example, you're trying to minimize these reactions of people feeling sick from detox.
This is such an interesting show today. I know for me, and I'm sure for everybody listening, because I live, breathe, eat, and sleep detox and non-toxic living. And this is all new to me. Like, I didn't know about the detox pathways. Now I'm guessing huge. Some of mine were closed because I've had some crazy detox symptoms, maybe especially early on when Ron and I got really, really healthy. Mm-hmm. I just sort of dove in and I thought like, hey, the more the merrier, as much as you can detox. And that's obviously not the case from what you're saying. So we need to have these detox. Like I've heard infrared. If you rush into infrared sauna therapy too quickly and too aggressively, that can kind of backfire, right? And so what are these detox pathways?
So basically, it's kind of the traditional things that, some herbalists and whatnot have been talking about for years. The kidney, bowel, liver, lymph system. And basically, if somebody's not going to the bathroom twice a day, they shouldn't be detoxing.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Not to get personal, but
I know. Sorry.
No, I'm thinking that's me.
Yeah. And if you don't, because basically your body is not going to be able to handle the toxins that will be basically kind of like released into your system that should go out through your regular, like the excretory pathways. So like urine and bowel, things like that.
So would you want to take like magnesium or something to help you go to the bathroom more while you're detoxing, I'm guessing?
Yeah, so that's one way. Hydration is really, really critical. So basically, if people are detoxing, again, this also depends on their size, but people need, on average, let's say if you're drinking about a gallon of water a day, but that's for sort of an average person. So, if you kind of have the typical amount of, let's say if a guy weighs 200 pounds, they should drink 100 ounces of water.
What are you saying, Dr. Ashley?
She's looking at Ron. She's looking at Ron on the Zoom.
Anybody.
Okay.
And so you just want to actually drink more water than you would normally. And then of course, if you're already drinking caffeinated beverages like coffee and things like that, you want to drink more water too.
Right. Alcohol and caffeine, very dehydrating. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm sure my in-laws hopefully will be listening to this episode, but we're always giving them health advice and getting them as healthy as we can. And my father-in-law, I hope he doesn't care I'm sharing this. He says he's always hungry. He's just always hungry. He can't get enough food. And I said, I think you need to do a parasite cleanse.
Yeah. I was going to say that screams parasites. Right?
Doesn't that? Yeah. Oh, good. Now the doctor said it. So now he'll listen. Cause I'm the daughter-in-law. I'm like, whatever. And so I was like, you need a parasite cleanse. Your parasites are sucking all this nutrients and you're not feeling satisfied. So he got it and he did it for a day and he said he felt a headache and a day and he was like, I'm done. And Ron and I were trying to explain, yes, that's normal. That's the detoxification die-off and symptoms. And, detoxing isn't fun. And you do have to, would you agree, allow space and time where, hey, I'm not going to run a marathon while I'm detoxing. I'm going to.
Yeah, for sure. But so my whole caveat too is like, you actually really need to prep for your detox pretty significantly, because then you can minimize those symptoms and then actually people will get better results too, because they won't feel so sick and they'll actually be able to get rid of things better.
And rest, right? You get really, at least me, I get very tired when I detox. Like I have no energy. And now going back to that detox pathway. So how would you know if how would you know if someone's detox pathways were open or closed? Well, you talked about elimination, but.
Yeah. So elimination already, if you're, having some issues with elimination, then let's say the bowel detox pathway is not functioning optimally at all. If you have somebody who gets headaches, generally the people who are sensitive to like scents, perfumes, chemicals, mold, fungus, things like that, the pathways are probably impaired for different reasons. People who feel puffy, they're swollen, like if they have swelling anywhere in their body, those are some of the common ones. But, like headaches, joint pain, those two, like the things are not moving through the body in the right way.
Ron with his gout.
Yeah, good point.
Which is really interesting because Ron tried everything under the sun, including just toughing it out and all this. And it really came down to, for us and for you, because when we went 100% vegan, of course the diet just naturally gets very clean and we're all organic. That was the thing that finally got him to be medication free and gout free. And it was a long journey. It's taken years and years to get to this point. So I think a lot of
critical because typically gout is just one joint attack, but it was multiple joints. So when it gets to that level, I had to take medication. There was something
just to function.
Wrong, right? And so, and then it took a while to kind of get off it. But any thoughts on gout? Do you have any? Okay.
Yeah. So joint pain a lot can be like, I'm always looking upstream to see what's actually like the root cause. The gout and the joint pain is downstream, that's your body reacting to something. So often when there's joint pains, it can be like bacteria can settle in the joints, spirochetes, which are more like Lyme family. There's a whole host of things that can cause joint pain.
Like Lyme disease, you're saying?
Yeah, Lyme disease and other ones called like Bartonella, or there's a whole bunch of ones. They settle in the joints and they attack the joints. Another one that's very interesting that attacks the joints is glyphosate.
Yes.
So it actually attacks the collagen.
Oh, wow. Oh, really? So for listeners, if you don't know glyphosate, it's the weed killer. It's the ingredient in Roundups, Monsanto's Roundup, now owned by Bayer. Bayer's Roundup brand of weed killer uses a chemical, which is a cancer-causing chemical called glyphosate. They would say it doesn't cause cancer, although they've been shelling out lots and lots and lots of money.
Hundreds of
millions of dollars to families who have proven that their cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I think, right? Is the cancer caused by that. So no to the weed killers. Go back to and listen to episode number 1, where we give you natural weed killer DIY recipes if you're interested in that.
That's a great tip. And for mold toxicity.
Yeah, I was going to say mold too, though. Mold can attack joints, can cause a lot of problems. Let's see what else. And then just also reactions from food. Gluten and dairy are huge against joints. So people always think that gluten sensitivity or dairy sensitivity just is some sort of digestive issue, but often it can be more issues that I find too with joints and headaches, migraines, so like neurological too, and even a lot of emotional anxiety connection.
Wow, that's really, I know our food plays such a role. We talked a lot about dairy and gluten. Ron and I are vegan. Are you gluten and dairy free even though you're not vegan?
That's correct. Yeah. I'm someone who gluten and dairy give me migraines and joint pain. And you, Ron, like multiple joints, it jumps from joint to joint.
Wow.
And it's within about 30 minutes of eating it.
Wow.
Oh, okay. That's pretty severe. Now, would it take a long time for it to go away, Dr. Ashley?
No, it'll get out of the system in a few days.
Okay.
But I mean, that's not good.
I don't know if you know Zem
Honeycutt from Moms Across America.
She is such a proponent against glyphosate and GMOs and all of that. But she said she's been finding fermented foods are really good to help kind of break and release glyphosate out of the body, which I had never heard before. Oh. So I've got Ron and I eating tempeh a lot lately.
I actually use one of the products that I really love for some of my detoxes. They have a binder that pulls the glyphosate out. So it's really great to use just in general, but then especially, like you could keep it in your purse and have it when you're eating out. Because when you eat out, like it's just ubiquitous and it's in kind of the soil and the water. So, we do so much, to buy organic and eat organic, but then anytime you kind of go out, it's just
you're going to get it. You're going to get it even in organic, right? You can even have glyphosate in a little bit of glyphosate from the drift off of like the non-organic farm next to the organic farm drifts the glyphosate into the organic farm. So sometimes organic food gets a bad rap because they go, oh, we found glyphosate, like the hummus study that recently came out. And people were like, oh, forget it. I just won't buy organic. I'm like, no. The organic had like tiny levels of it. There's a huge difference when you're polluting your body with high levels of poisons versus like, I got a teeny little bit, right?
I know.
Okay. So we talked about mold a little bit. And I know even we had a doctor on and she really talked about mold being very much linked to Lyme disease, interestingly, as a source for that. So what can people do? So what can people, because a lot of people get used to feeling bad. I think this is really prevalent in our society today. Like Ron, he was just like, hey, Lisa, I have gout and this is just who I am. And my brother has it. And
at a young age, actually, typically what was alarming was you usually are an older, overweight man that gets gout. At least it used to be the case.
Shrimp.
I was a lean fighting machine, 21 years old and hobbling.
Yeah. You were like looking like an old man. And that disease has along with so many diseases that we're seeing massive increases in today, especially the autoimmune diseases, the learning disabilities, cancer, these kinds of things. So, and people get used to, oh, I just get headaches. I hear a lot of people say that.
They say like, oh, it's normal. Like this is just normal for me.
Yeah. Just pop the pills and everything's fine. So what would you say to somebody that comes to you that's like, not, they're having issues. They don't know what to do.
I love running labs. So like, I love looking for these environmental toxins. I love looking for glyphosate, for mold.
Did you say running labs or what was that?
Yeah, running labs.
Running laps. Oh, okay. I thought you meant laps at first. And then I was like,
she likes running laps around her office when she gets stressed.
Like, wow.
When a patient comes in, she just runs.
Yeah. And then another really big one that I love to do is a lab where we check like gut bacteria, if there's candida overgrowth, mold, vitamin deficiencies, some things like that. Because like, as you've seen, to me, I still think like, removing the foods is a piece and getting the inflammation down is a piece, but you still need to figure out what the root cause was. Yeah. Because the second, if you add food back in and you get symptoms again, there's still something going on that you don't want in your body.
Yeah.
So again, the headaches are really common for people. For me, just is really trying to figure out, what kind of labs to run, or if someone can't afford labs, I have some really great questionnaires to kind of pinpoint what some possible organs are that we need to focus on, because I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner. So basically, we look at a lot of how the organs relate to things, and the organ that relates to joint pain is the liver. So again, we look at like how the liver is processing either toxins or emotional stress and things like that. I love pairing, kind of a variety of different modalities together to really see how we can help get someone back into balance. And then I do a lot of these kind of systematic targeted detoxes based on what I find.
Wow. I need to come see you and get I just got my blood work and everything was good. Little tiny things like, I guess I need more electrolytes, little silly things, but nothing like major.
But also there's optimal ranges and then there's okay ranges. So whatever you get at the doctor, usually your doctor usually calls you back and they're like, everything's fine. And especially I find for women, like for iron per se, you need it in the high 80% range of functioning in order for your thyroid to work, for you to grow new hair. So there's a whole lot of things that get slipped out by the wayside with just, regular blood work and lab ranges.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's a really good point. And even we talked about this on another show that, a lot of doctors just do very bare bones lab tests, and so you're not really getting into the nitty gritty of things. What do you find? Like, do you find Candida to be a big problem? I remember when I first discovered I had Candida, I mean, I was having like a stomach like pregnant and I was bloated all the time. And I just kind of like we were talking about that, I guess that's just me, And then one day I was getting a colon hydrotherapy and the lady goes, I think you have Candida. And I was like, whoa, what's that? And I went on a really good probiotic and it took a long time. It took months, but I finally cleared it. And whoa, what a huge difference. Because the list of Candida symptoms like foggy brain and all, it literally went away.
Yep. Yeah. So Candida is really huge. One of the labs that I use, there are a couple of markers there for different yeast and Candida, and then fungal markers with the mold is in that group too. Mm-hmm. And so mold also and Candida often go together because they're kind of in the same umbrella family.
Okay.
So a lot of Candida issues overlap with mold issues. So it's good to kind of see the difference. But yeah, it's a huge issue. And I see it a lot with kids. The labs I use, which are really great because it's just a urine sample and it's sent to somebody's home. So they can do it, especially now, very easy. And kids can do it. And so a lot of times there's all these kids now who have anxiety issues and gut issues. And to me, if you can kind of fix that now, it's huge for them because it's something to kind of at least get them in the right mindset of like knowing about gut health and all the sugar that a lot of kids really do consume, and really try to get that resolved, and that the sugar has a huge impact on anxiety.
That's so interesting. Kids have it, and that makes sense. So just to explain what Candida is to listeners who have never heard of it, it's basically an overgrowth of bad bacteria in your gut. Is that right?
Yeah, fungus. Mm-hmm.
Fungus.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just call it out what it is.
Fungus. There's like fungus and bacteria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so mold and Candida fall under the fungus and yeast area.
Fungus. It's a fungus overgrowth. So for little kids, would they have the bloating, or would it really be
They might be just like complaining of a tummy ache. Some kids, a lot of it shows up as anxiety, could be headaches, like already their joints getting a little stiff. But especially right now, anxiety is kicked up quite a bit for little kids. And adults too. But at the same time, I would just say, I can't even say how many friends of mine have kids that have anxiety. And, and these are like, they're like 6, 7, 8 years old. And that's just not, that's not okay. And it can be remedied usually pretty well, and give them some tools now so that they don't need to have this as part of like who they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So they can come see you, or if they don't live in California, can they just go to their doctor and say, run a Candida test?
No. So I see people virtually,
okay.
But at the same time, so this is a lab I use called an organic acid test. And it's, like I said, it checks for Candida. If you go to your MD and ask for a Candida test, they'll probably think you're, crazy. And then B, they won't know what to run, and they might run some sort of lab that honestly won't tell you much at all.
Oh, okay.
Because the Candida is not going to show up in the blood very much.
Gotcha.
So it's like, this is to see if it's in your gut.
Gotcha. Okay. So
we all have body burden,
yes,
or the toxic load that we carry around from our air, our water, our food, our furniture, our household items, our personal care items, pesticides, everything, right? We're being bombarded.
Yeah.
And we talked about a Candida test, but what are some other tests that we need to run to kind of witness and determine if we have the body burden?
Sure. So one of my other favorite tests is an environmental toxin test. Again, it's a urine cup, same company. And basically it tests for a bunch of different organophosphates, BPA, phthalates. It's a really good overall test for non-metals. So this is not a metal burden test. This is
plasticizers,
yes.
Pesticides.
Yeah.
Is it expensive?
It is. I think it's about $250 or $300.
Okay. And insurance does not cover that, right? Typically.
Yeah, insurance won't cover that. Yeah. Well,
but that's one of my favorite tests, like that one, the gut one, and then the mold test. Those are kind of like my 3 favorite. And then there's a glyphosate test too.
Wow. Will insurance cover any of that or no? No. Okay. Was that like $1,000 to get those 3?
Yeah, about-ish in there, a little bit more, somewhere around there.
But as we say, pay now or really, really, really pay later. Yes, it's a big.
That's very true. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I always say this, and this is one of the challenges, even with us teaching people to eliminate toxins from their home is, oh, my home's not toxic. Oh, I'm fine. I'm feeling great. There's nothing I need to do, until they get really sick.
Right.
Then they want to do everything, but it's much easier to prevent illness than to cure illness. So, invest in yourself. And
it's much easier. Like, most people have a few layers of things going on. Like generally, if the candida is overgrowing, there's some bacteria overgrowing because it's a community with that, is inside your system. And so when one gets out of balance, often another does too, because they're opportunistic. So it's very important too that, you're generally
they have a positive attitude, the bacteria. They look on the bright side.
Exactly. So it's important because often we're treating layers of things. And so you kind of go layer by layer, and it's easier and great if you were just really treating someone with just gut bacteria issues. You know what I mean? But as people get more and more things, it does get more complicated. And generally, as you guys know, like even I'm sure with the joint pain that you had in the gout, like it was getting worse, not better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was out of control.
So, yeah. So generally people, even with some diet modifications and things like that, they need a plan and they need some structure and they need to give it time, because it's really more like a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
These take some time to get rid of. And they've taken time and years to get there. And as you were saying, those environmental toxins, unless someone's actively doing things and the right things to get them out, they're not going to get out of your system just by normal mechanisms.
Exactly. That's a great point, Dr. Ashley, that, give it time, be gentle with yourself and understand that it took you a long time to get ill, whatever you're dealing with. If you're listening, just allow that time to undo it too. And I want to give a little tip, because this is about avoiding toxins in water. A lot of people spend loads and loads of money on plastic bottles or even filtering their water at home. And then they go out to eat and they drink the tap water. And even if they're not drinking the tap water, they're getting a drink with ice cubes, which are completely unfiltered. So guys, stop drinking the tap water when you go out. And if you go out anywhere and get a drink, don't get the ice cubes, because you're just getting heavy metals and bacteria and parasites and pharmaceuticals and all this crap that's in drinking water today, chlorine, fluoride, all of that. So that's a little simple tip you can do today. Okay, so Dr. Ashley, I don't know if you know, but I got sick from a newly remodeled toxic home many years ago. But for our listeners, what are some of the common symptoms that someone is reacting negatively to an environment?
Oh, sure. So a new onset of allergies or stuffy nose that you didn't have before, headaches, watery eyes, asthma that you didn't have before. Let's see, what else?
Headaches?
Headaches, rashes. Just a
acne,
feeling of
like
malaise.
adult acne,
Mm-hmm.
would you say?
You can have adult acne, like malaise. Like some people just don't understand like why they don't feel well, but they don't. Often too, you can get foggy thinking too, even like impaired cognitive decline. What else? Those are some of the main.
But dry scalp, the dry itchy head scalp. Is that ever?
Yeah, changes to your skin. So those are pretty common.
Rashes, eczema. And I would think, like for me, I had major hormonal imbalances when I was.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Environmental toxins, like basically just wreak havoc on the endocrine or hormonal system.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have so much xenoestrogens, which are man-made estrogens in our environment. So then when we have excess estrogen in our foods and all of that, and then we have the toxic man-made estrogens, we get what's called estrogen dominance. And this is a very big problem for women. This was something I'm really passionate about because it wreaked havoc on my life and health. And when you fix that and when you balance your hormones and you're healthy, whoa, right? It's like night and day. You're a totally different person.
And that's something I really am passionate about helping women with. Because a lot of them, they just don't realize. And you see people, they're like at work and they brought food in a plastic container and then they're microwaving it in something plastic. And I'm just like, yeesh, that's like so many things that are
wrong with that.
Terrible for your system. Yeah. But, or just that people, and, I'm so obsessed with these things and I have been for years with xenoestrogens. It was like a life-changing, information when I started learning about them. It's like there's all these little swaps, and that's what you guys really help everyone understand, that there's all these things people can do, and a lot of it's just educating people. They think that they're buying healthy water because it's spring water, but it's in plastic, or, whatever it is. Or I hear this all the time, even from other practitioners or things. And they're like, but it says it's non-BPA plastic. And I'm like, it's plastic. That's just not marketed and, understood that that's toxic. Like, it's just not one that companies have grabbed onto to show that it's bad. Like, they're all bad if it's plastic. I don't even care.
Thank you for saying that, Dr. Ashley. And just if anyone doesn't know, there was a study done on plastics, and they found every single type of plastic, whether it's your saran wrap to your hard plastic to your soft plastic, every single type of plastic released estrogenic activity into the body. Even the PET, which is the polyethylene terephthalate, number one reusable bottles, right at the bottom, there's a triangle and it'll have the number of the plastic inside. So your disposable bottles are number one. PVC is number 3. BPA is number 7. And then whatever, I don't want to get into all this, but I'm just saying, sorry, I'm going on a tangent here.
No plastics.
Just no plastic. None of them are good. And they're petroleum derived. I don't think people realize they're petroleum derived. How can they be healthy for you?
And they don't go away.
They don't they don't biodegrade. Use stainless steel, use glass. Yeah. Filter your own water. Remember my tip, don't get that tap water when you go out to eat.
When you're eating, you don't need to be drinking water, just from the health purposes. No, it dilutes the digestive juices. So I try to get people just to not, if you really needed something, of course, have a sip, but your practice should not be to be drinking drinks and things like that. When you're
Dr. Ashley, what if it's a wine glass? What if it's wine?
What if it's Friday night?
That's the exception.
Wait, that's a really good point, because I had heard that years ago. So I'm glad you brought that up. So really, you should not eat your food. And then if you're going to drink anything, would you drink it after or before? Or you want to wait
30 minutes before.
Okay, 30 minutes before. And then is this have to do with cold and hot too? Is there a time?
Cold and hot, the cold is not good for your digestive system. So it's definitely the wrong thing to be having right before a meal. Basically, a lot of Chinese practitioners laugh at us in the United States because we do all the wrong things for digestion.
Wow. No wonder we have so many digestion issues here.
Cold water is one of the worst.
Cold water?
Mm-hmm.
Any time of the day or just before you eat?
Especially before you're going to eat, but it goes back to each person. So if somebody's already always hot, then the cool water can kind of cool them down and bring them back down to homeostasis. But for majority of women who are always freezing.
Wow, Ashley, you and me had so many similarities.
Yes.
I'm like the hormone thing, the cold thing, I used to be cold all the time until I started taking care of my thyroid. I didn't ever have I was never diagnosed with a thyroid issue, but it was always kind of bordering. Mm-hmm. And then I started supplementing with iodine and boom, totally fine. Now my thyroid labs come back perfect now. So, and I'm no longer cold, no cold hands and feet. It's really wonderful.
And that's one of those things too, that people say I'm just always freezing, but no, you shouldn't be.
Right.
That's a clue that something's going on, either with the thyroid or with your iron or other issues, but you shouldn't be freezing.
These are all great tips. So we talked about filtered water. We talked about plastics. In your opinion, what else is there? What's the most important thing someone should focus on for their health? Can you give our listeners some takeaways, some additional takeaways that they should know about, kind of bundled up in a way for simple, digestible bits of information they can take with them every day?
A lot of the time, I think people skip basics. How well you're sleeping, getting to bed ideally around 10, so you get really good hours so that you actually can detox in the evening, which is what you should be doing. Sorry, I went backwards. I started with sleep. The second thing is hydration. People definitely don't drink enough water. That's just in general. And then again, the right water and the quality of water and the container it's in, all important.
Wait, Dr. Ashley, look, you guys can't see this at home. Here's my water glass with my glass straw.
Yeah.
Good, right? That's what we want.
You're good.
Straws. Okay. Yep.
Organic lipstick as well, I noticed on the straw.
Did you see?
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. The clean personal care products are a huge passion of mine. That is how we met. I was so obsessed with it, and that they were not in glass bottles, that I started a company where we handmade everything, because people would put this beautiful product in a plastic container that had essential oils, and they were basically just, absorbing toxins from the container. So glass is very important.
Do you still have that skincare line?
We don't. After we had kids and our practices, it was, there's so many, it was too much at that point. At this point now, clean beauty is so big. There are a lot of options. So I'd rather support other companies that are really passionate about that.
Yeah, you get your hands full. Exactly.
Doctor, actually, I know someone that drinks a lot of mineral water. Should there be a limit to the amount of mineral water they should drink?
Like the carbonated water?
Natural mineral water.
Oh,
Like from Italy.
Everything in moderation. If that's all they're drinking, then I would say they could put a cap on it at a certain amount. If they're craving all those minerals, I think then they must be deficient. So they might have an absorption issue, is what I would look at. Your body gives a lot of clues. So we want to use the clues to kind of dig a little deeper and see what actually is the issue.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay. And so let's circle back to kids. Or did you finish the round question?
Mostly it's kind of like sleep, hydration, finding ways to reduce your stress, if that's meditation, even if it's 5 minutes of ocean sound music, in the morning, at night, and then movement, of course.
Movement. And it's interesting you mentioned going to bed by 10. I worked with a naturopath years ago when I was having my hormonal issues, and she was like, you have to start going to bed at 10 because my cortisol was spiking at weird times in the day.
Yep.
So is that something in Chinese medicine? There's really something to that 10 o'clock time?
Yeah.
Right?
So there's two things, and I go over this usually with patients. So the 10 p.m., once you're up past 10, your body will start to wonder why you're awake, and then it secretes cortisol at night. So cortisol is the stress hormone. This makes people gain weight around their middle, especially. And that's also when you hear people say, oh no, that's when I get my second wind. Like, this is when I get all my stuff back.
Yeah, right.
And that's what you're feeling, is that release of a stress hormone that's wondering why you're up, because you should be asleep and in bed because it's been dark now for a few hours.
Gotcha.
The second thing is, in Chinese medicine, around 10, basically, and from that part in the evening, that's when you kind of start to detox, and the body starts helping like process the day and process the toxins, things like that. So that's why it's really important to get to bed, so that you basically are kind of primed for that time. And again, that's why sometimes people, we look for when they wake up. So like some people have maybe a glass of alcohol or wine, and then they wake up at the liver time, which is between 1 and 3 a.m. So the body's actually working really hard to detox. So if you're someone who wakes up around 3, which is the most common time to wake up, we look at the liver and we look at the emotions of either stress or depression, or what kind of toxins are they trying to filter from the day, or alcohol.
So, because everybody talks about the adequate amount of sleep, but no one's really talking about the adequate time to sleep. So that's really important. Would you say it's almost more important, the time you go to bed versus the amount? I'm guessing
the hours before midnight are extra recuperative. So it is very important. I would much rather someone go to bed early and wake up early.
Okay.
There's people that say, oh, I don't need as much. Even genetically, there are some variations, but mostly people need between 7 and 9 hours.
7 and 9.
There might be some rare exceptions.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people are chronically tired. So if you're someone who, falls asleep or gets kind of sleepy at 3, you're probably tired.
You're just not getting enough adequate rest. Yeah.
Right.
And so what about kids? So you have one child, or do you
I have one? Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Your little girl is so cute. How does all this affect kids today? All of these toxins.
This overburden of toxins?
Yeah.
So I have a couple different ideas on this. So one, we talk about this too, like this bucket that gets filled with environmental toxins. So the body burden bucket. And there are a lot of people and a lot of kids who, today it's like people are saying, kids are more and more sick, like with autism or PANS and PANDAS. Like there's all these different things. And basically all of those.
Did you say PANS? What's
PANS? It's basically when an environmental toxin overload, like bacteria or strep or certain things, causes like a complete shift in your child. Sometimes it can be even from strep infection.
Okay.
But now it's been opened up to quite a few other things. And basically it's like these kids, their bucket is full, and they are, in full blown non-functioning and very aggressive. It's not like, it's like someone's child is somebody new.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so that is a whole group of kids that basically it's, they were exposed. They had, like I said, like a certain bacteria or a virus that basically caused them to kind of like their bucket to overflow.
Is that reversible?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Through detoxification?
It is. It's through Detox. Yeah. And it usually is a pretty long process because kids are pretty sensitive too. And again, they're reacting to things like foods and sugar, and these are
all the allergies,
all those things. And as you guys know too, like most kids, there's so many kids now with severe food allergies, and now it's a lot more common. Like when we were little, no one was allergic to gluten. There was like the random maybe.
No one was allergic to anything. I feel like when we grew up, I didn't even know a kid with allergies. Like
no, like I think
wasn't a thing.
I maybe heard that someone could be allergic to peanuts, but like,
peanuts.
It was not normal. Like, now at my daughter's, when she was in preschool, no child could have nuts of any, form because there were a handful of kids that were anaphylactically would react to nuts. I think like everyone's buckets are getting full, much quicker.
Well, and Dr. Ashley, I know you probably know the study from the Environmental Working Group that did the umbilical cord testing of babies born. It was called the body burden, I believe. Mm-hmm. Babies are coming into the world pre-polluted with 285 chemicals in their body. So then we're talking about glyphosate and pesticides and polluted air and polluted water and toxic bedding and flame retardants, and we can go on. And I don't want to scare people, but I'm just saying, like, you can no longer just think I'm just going to go through life and I'm not going to get sick. You have to be proactive today. You have to take this into your own hands, and you have to make those choices. And yes, you are going to spend a little more on organic food, but like we said, you're going to be saving so much money on the other side from health, costs and things like that.
Yeah. And it's really important. So I think like on one hand, you have a lot of, parents who you do so many things to have like a clean environment for your kids and whatnot. But like you said, like they're already just coming in with a whole lot more, like even in their blood and in their tissues than we were.
That they already have to battle that.
And then, but what I'm seeing a lot too is, there's all these rises of different neurological diseases like Parkinson's, and then there's huge influx of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's and type 2 diabetes. And that's the result of basically, a lot of the agricultural movement of all those pesticides and things. Like kids used to play in the sprinklers, of pesticides, and those are the ones usually who are getting very sick now in their 40s, 50s, and 60s with major neurological problems.
Didn't those kids used to follow the guy spraying DDT?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So those ones, because like I said, with a lot of the lab testing that I do, and you see the environmental toxins, those are the ones that a lot of neurological issues are showing up. And too early, what I mean?
Too early. We got to put a stop to this. So I read that you had said you remembered having your aha moment when you realized you needed to do something about it because this was not how life was supposed to be. And I felt the same way, Dr. Ashley. We were, it sounds like both of us at that point, we were just surviving and not thriving. And that's not a life, nor is being loaded up on meds. So what can be done for those who feel hopeless and have just accepted feeling blah as the status quo?
I would say you're your biggest health advocate. You know what I mean? So if you don't feel well, you need to kind of dig deeper. And now there's so many different people and doctors, and not even always doctors, but health advocates of, teaching people different ways. And your habits that you have every day really make a huge impact. So even just somebody, if they don't and are not able to give up gluten, dairy, and sugar, let's say, or become vegan, I ask them to pick one thing. And I usually stress sugar because to me, sugar is so inflammatory. It doesn't cause any good. And it usually just creates more problems, especially down the road. But even if they can make one big shift of kind of getting that out of their life. But again, it needs to be doable. So if someone can't do that, then pick something else. But people they do need to make changes because if they don't make changes, they're just going to actually feel worse and worse. And it doesn't have to be so bad. Do you know what I mean? Everyone always asks me, and I'm sure you guys too, like, oh, do you miss having this and miss that? And I was like, I mean, sure, I miss having pizza, but at the same time, do I miss like not being able to exercise or walk or hold my phone just because my hand has like so much inflammation?
Yeah.
So, no. And like, you get to a point where, I used to cheat like once a week and have a little bit of gluten or a little bit of dairy.
Yeah.
And so I did that for 10 years. So I never really got fully where I felt much better. but I would get migraines all the time. So it was like such a up and down
roller coaster. Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally I was like, this is, like you're done. You're like, you just pick you and you pick feeling good and other, I think it's just really crucial.
Yeah. Nothing tastes as good as healthy feels.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Good.
Nothing, because people, when we first went vegan, it seems so extreme. And granted, it was a long journey to get there, but you feel so good that the food, the little short-term pleasure of tasting something just isn't as important anymore. Because also, let's face it, there's so much amazing food now that is accessible and easy to get that tastes just as good. You can get your vegan gluten-free pizza and still have a pizza party, and you can do all that. So it's not about sacrificing. It is about swapping.
Yeah.
And right. Finding the thing.
Definitely. And that's one thing I give people, and I'm sure you guys too. It's like my favorite, vegan cheese, my favorite gluten-free pasta.
What is your favorite vegan cheese? We should ask you. What is it?
Violife.
Violife. Okay. What flavor of Violife cheese?
The cheddar slices or the cheddar melts.
Ooh,
cheddar melt. I never tried that.
Oh my gosh. And then especially, so my favorite treat that's sort of like I feel like it's like kid food is the siete, the almond flour tortillas.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
With the Violife cheddar crumbles. And it feels like, an actual quesadilla with a flour tortilla and cheese. So
how about this? Add the chipotle sauce from Healthy Heart brand. Right,
Follow your heart.
Follow your heart. Follow your heart.
Oh,
Orange chipotle. It's so good.
And I like Follow Your Heart cheeses, but like Violife has, taken my heart on vegan cheese.
Forget Follow Your Heart. Violife has stole your heart. I love it. Now, before we wrap up, there is, gosh, I'm not going to say this right. There's a gene. It's called like MTFR.
MTHFR.
Okay. Is that it? MTHFR. And if you have this, tell me about it. You're harder for you to detox. Is that correct?
Yeah. So this is another thing with the genes. And I talk about this a lot, is basically it's not that great to isolate one gene or two, like another gene. So it gets very popular to talk about like one specifically, but there are a handful of genes that work in different ways on how you detox. So the MTHFR gene, there's actually two different ones, but a lot of people now check to see if you have a variant. So people say mutation, but it's a variant. And it basically, there's different ways, and you should actually pair them with the two of them together to see your percentage of basically, it's like a decline in how well you can detox or how effective this methylation process is, which has to do with detox. But there are ways around it with having the right type of, often a methylated B vitamin, but it's not always so simple, and it's not always like the be all. You know what?
My doctor just told me to get a methyl. I didn't even know what she was talking about. I just wrote it down. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm getting this methylated vitamin. Okay.
Yeah. So we can chat about a good one because there's lots of them out there.
Okay.
But this is that kind of thing where, to me, the genetic piece it's basically, it's nice. It gives you a blueprint of sort of what you came in with. And so it helps people a lot kind of figure out and go through all of the chatter of like, keto or, vegan or, like, can I have all this saturated fat? Can I not? Can I have coconut oil? Can I not?
That test will kind of give you an overview of what works well with your body.
Yeah. And so that's what I do a lot with people, but especially I utilize it for the detox process, because that's what happened to me is I've been doing, these detoxes since high school. I was obsessed with detoxes in high school. And so I've been doing them forever.
Such a star student.
But so I think it was my body just telling me, you know what I mean? So I was always really into the liver. Mm-hmm. So I've done cleanses, for 20 years. And then I went and did these labs I wasn't even going to do the one on environmental toxins because I was like, I've been, pretty much organic for the last 20 years. Like, haven't even picked up a plastic item in 20 years unless it was an emergency and all of these things. And I got the lab back and they said, this is one of the worst we've ever seen. Like, what are you doing?
Really?
And I said, that can't be. Yeah. I wasn't even going to take this test, but I thought, I run this on all my clients, I should take it. Then I paired it with my genetics, and I basically just do not detox things well in multiple areas. Like, And all the cleanses I was doing just were not the right ones. Like they were kind of specific herbal ones, but they weren't like I said, with the glutathione or with some of the precursors. So I wasn't supporting the right pathways.
Oh.
And so again, I just think a lot of things need to be customized. And even if not, like in Chinese medicine, we do a constitution, kind of like where if somebody's always cold, you need to give them warming foods, not salad.
Yeah.
Things like that. So
right.
Again, I just really customizing is important.
I love that you integrate Chinese medicine. I think I told you before the show how you're an acupuncturist. You've treated 40,000 patients. And my first experience was the worst place that I could have possibly gone, which was what's it called? The acupuncture school.
Yeah.
In Santa Monica.
Well, and don't let students basically train on you.
I let students not only I was like Hellraiser laying on the table, and there were, I think 5 or 6 Chinese doctors surrounding me. None of them spoke English. So all I heard was, this whisper and all these big, huge, Ashley, like 5-inch needles going all in through my body. And I was so desperate to get better. I was like, and I also had never done acupuncture. So I thought it was going to be this pleasant, wonderful experience. And I was like, oh my God. And I think I told you, they let me sit for a long time with the needles in too. I think it was like at least an hour on my back and then an hour on my stomach at least. I was in there a 3-hour session total. And I had this major emotional release. I was bawling at the end of the treatment. I couldn't stop crying. The poor doctors couldn't even talk to me because they didn't speak English and I didn't speak Chinese. So I didn't know what was going on. I was hiding around the corner to go out and pay. And the lady sees me and kind of waves me over. She's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, but I cannot stop crying. And she said, oh, that's really, really good. I was like, wait, what? Yeah. This is good? I just like, how is this good? She's like, you opened up these channels and you've had this big emotional release. And that's when I really was like, wow, acupuncture is very powerful. I felt incredibly euphoric on my drive home. And that lasted for a while. I just felt like on cloud 9. I'm not saying that would be everybody's experience, but it was pretty profound. And I think the Chinese medicine and philosophy does such a good job at looking at everything as a whole and getting to the root of things versus just treating the symptom.
Definitely. And the emotions have such a direct connection with disease and illness and just our regular, our well-being. So often you can't separate the emotional and the physical. And that's one thing that really drew me to Chinese medicine, and something that I still implement with people today.
Oh, I love that. Now, is the liver the gateway to health? Is that the sort of philosophy? Or?
Well, maybe in my opinion, because I love it so much, but
she loves the liver.
No, I mean, they have different schools of thought. So there's like the stomach is the gateway to health, or the liver, or the heart, because it controls everything. So there's a whole lot of different schools of thought within Chinese medicine. Since it's 5,000 years old, there's a lot of different theory. It's just really lovely. And that's one thing I like about it is, again, it brings in the piece of what I like to do too, is like kind of just getting people primed for health and repatterning their cells and letting go of old emotional things, because people that are often chronically sick, basically, those patterns are ingrained, and you need to learn how to let go of that so that you can actually repattern for healing.
Right. And going back even like in a karmic cycle, I've heard too from our ancestors, things that we actually hold on into our bodies, which is pretty profound. Dr. Ashley, this has been so incredible. I've learned so much. I know Ron has, I know our listeners have. Where can people find out more about you?
Sure. So on my website, which is drashley.com, just drashley.com, I offer complimentary call just to see if we're a good fit, see if I can help you, see if it's something, that whatever you have going on is something that I help people with. And through Instagram, same, Dr. Ashley Beckman.
Dr. Ashley Beckman, Beckman.
That's correct.
I love it. She is so amazing. Check out her website, visit her, do a virtual call if need be. And sounds like you can even do your labs virtually. So this is amazing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can learn more about Dr. Ashley again at Dr. Ashley, that's drashley.com. Check out her coaching, her store, and her online programs. And guys, be sure to tune in next week for another great show and get ready to up-level your health. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode of the Healthy Home Hacks podcast has ended, but be sure to subscribe for more healthy living strategies and tactics to help you create the healthy home you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. See you on the next episode.